Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Mandalorian Season 2 video all about Boba Fett, his history, and the Easter eggs from the episode. I'm doing videos for all the Season 2 episodes, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all of them. We'll do a new Disney Plus membership giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave all your Boba Fett predictions for Season 2 on the video. So obviously, careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet, but we'll just start with the big stuff and work our way down the list. Number 5 is The Mandalorian takes Boba Fett's armor from Cobb Vanth. They make a couple references to the damage that it sustained recently and historical damage from the Star Wars movies and books. Tell your people that I wasn't the one that did that to the armor. So there's a dent in the armor from where Boba Fett got hit on Jabba's sail barge. Mando also hits him on his armor to the same place where Han Solo hit him. There's damage on his helmet from Cad Bane, and if you didn't watch the Clone Wars, Cad Bane also mentored Boba Fett as a bounty hunter when he got a little bit older. Boba Fett appeared as a child during the events of the Clone Wars. Dave Filoni actually revealed back at Star Wars Celebration 2015 that there was going to be this 5-episode arc where Boba Fett and Cad Bane were traveling around together in future episodes, but that never wound up getting made. They did make a lot of the episodes that Dave Filoni talked about for the Clone Wars Season 7, but the Cad Bane Boba Fett stuff didn't make it in because they were mostly focused on finishing the Bad Batch episodes that they had already done work on. There were a bunch of uncompleted episodes when the show was canceled. They also just announced that one of the new animated series that they're doing is based on those Bad Batch characters after the events of the Clone Wars Season 7. And then they also wanted to wrap up the Ahsoka storyline, the Darth Maul storylines, and the Clones storyline, just telling the story of Order 66 from their perspective, crossing over with the events of Revenge of the Sith.
Execute Order 66.
If you haven't seen those episodes, I did videos for those. They're on my channel. They were fantastic. But for those of you asking after Season 1, because there were a lot of theories about who showed up at the end of Season 1, Episode 5, now we know who it was, but there were a lot of people at the time that thought it could also be Cad Bane because he also wears the same type of spurs that you heard jingling across the sand as he was walking up to Fennec Shan's body. And for those of you wondering, Dave Filoni did reveal that the Cad Bane character did survive the events of the Clone Wars and eventually went on to serve the Empire, so he's still alive during the events of The Mandalorian and could always show up on the series at some point. But number 4, big stuff, as the Mandalorian rides across the Twin Suns, sunset, very Star Wars A New Hope, Temuera Morrison returns as Boba Fett without his armor, watching from a vantage point in the same clothing that we saw him in from the end of Season 1, Episode 5, now knowing that it was him after all. At the time the episode aired last year, I felt like that was what they were going for. Like, why else would you put the spurs on the boots and make them jingle that way if you didn't want people to think that it was Boba Fett? Just like a classic gunslinger would. The episode was titled The Gunslinger, which at the time was mostly a reference to the Mandalorian, Toro, and Ming-Na's Fennec Shan character, but it was also a clever reference to Boba Fett coming back because he's a gunslinger, and they always knew that they were going to do him during Season 2. His face doesn't betray any emotion, he's stone cold, but he's probably been monitoring Cobb Vanth this whole time, just waiting for an opportunity to take his armor back, and then all of a sudden the Mando and Baby Yoda show up, so now he's following them. Not only because he wants to take his armor back, but probably because Baby Yoda has also piqued his curiosity. And you have to remember that he's still a bounty hunter. He would know about the bounties that have been out on Mando and Baby Yoda in the past. As of Episode 1, we don't really know if Moff Gideon has an active bounty out on them right now, but I'll address Boba Fett potentially working for Moff Gideon in a second, because you have the whole Boba Fett working for Darth Vader, all the references to Empire Strikes Back. It just implied that eventually those 3 or 4 characters, including Baby Yoda, will have a great gunslinger standoff at some point in the series. The good, the bad, and the ugly, if we're talking about big Western movies. Mando being the Clint Eastwood character, the good, Moff Gideon, the bad, and Boba Fett, the ugly, because now he's literally scarred from the damage he sustained in the Sarlacc pit. The City Miles version of Boba Fett. And for those of you asking, yes, obviously it's possible that Rex could show up on the series because he's still alive after the events of Return of the Jedi 2. He would also be played by Temuera Morrison. He plays all the clones. That's sort of the trick of Star Wars. He is the clone. Number 3, but how did Boba Fett survive the Sarlacc pit? During the episode, the Tusken Raiders explain how the Krayt Dragon species eats Sarlaccs, and this particular Krayt Dragon ate this Sarlacc, and that's why it's using its lair as its home. Also, for a lot of you that were wondering, yes, that whole Krayt Dragon part of the episode is directly ripped out of a Knights of the Old Republic mission that you go on to get a Krayt Dragon Pearl. Jon Favreau is the one that wrote the episode, so apparently he's a huge fan of Knights of the Old Republic. Because this area, this Sarlacc pit, is in close proximity to where the Jawas scavenged Boba Fett's armor and found Cobb Vanth, Boba Fett probably escaped when the Sarlacc he was in got eaten or was in the process of getting eaten by a krayt dragon. That's a big callback reference to A Phantom Menace, where Qui-Gon Jinn says there's always a bigger fish, as a bunch of successively larger fish come along eating the smaller fish. And speaking of water references underwater, they're in the Dune Sea, and the krayt dragon also travels underneath the sand, underneath the Dune Sea. It doesn't absolutely confirm that this particular Sarlacc pit is the exact one that Boba Fett escaped from, but it could have been. The Tusken Raiders say that they've been tracking this particular krayt dragon for generations, following its cycles, just following it around as it moved about Tatooine hunting. But it's implied that Boba Fett barely escaped with his life, lost his armor in the process of the escape, but the Beskar armor, being super strong, is what helped him survive in the Sarlacc for so long. But because Cobb Vanth said that he got Boba Fett's armor within a couple weeks of the end of Return of the Jedi, you also have to assume that the Jawas scavenged it right after the events of Return of the Jedi, so Boba Fett himself wasn't in the Sarlacc for that long. Number 2, big question, what will Boba Fett's storyline be other than reclaiming his armor and becoming a bounty hunter again? Maybe in trying to reclaim his armor, they'll try to redeem the character after his poor showing in Return of the Jedi and the hilarious way he went out. There was this whole joke about Return of the Jedi in the fandom that he's meant to be the most fearsome bounty hunter in the galaxy. They hype him up all through Empire Strikes Back. You have that crazy ending with Han Solo going into the Carbonite. Then they hilariously take Boba Fett out in a funny way in the Sarlacc pit at the very beginning of Return of the Jedi, and that's the last you hear of the character. Like, well, I guess he wasn't so badass after all. Part of what they did during Season 2, Episode 1 was try to redeem the Tusken Raider characters. Like, no, they're not exactly the way that the movies have portrayed them in the past. They're way cooler than you thought that they were. So I feel like that's what they're doing with the Boba Fett character during Season 2, possibly Season 3 and other seasons, is try to show you why he's the most fearsome bounty hunter in the galaxy. You also have the idea of real Mandalorians versus fake Mandalorians with that whole Cobb Vanth twist in the episode, the way he took his helmet off so quickly, and the Mando's insistence that part of their code states that only real Mandalorians have the right to wear that armor. Jon Favreau himself describes the Boba Fett character as not a true Mandalorian in the context of the Star Wars movies and his history, just someone who wears Mandalorian armor and doesn't necessarily follow their code. So I feel like that's the biggest teaser he could give you for a huge Mandalorian versus Boba Fett fight at some point during the series. Whether or not it happens during Season 2 or Season 3 remains to be seen. But whatever they do with the Boba Fett character in terms of painting him as a villain or an antagonist during Season 2, I do like the idea that they eventually want him to reclaim his quote-unquote honor as he's reclaiming his armor. So it's possible that eventually, if they don't turn him into a crazy big villain in the future of the series, he'll also try to reclaim some of his heritage, technically as a genetic Mandalorian, because Jango Fett at one time was a Mandalorian, but then he got kicked out. So technically Boba Fett couldn't call himself a Mandalorian at this point in the series. You also have the idea that Temuera Morrison is getting a little bit older, so it's a little harder for him to film those epic Boba Fett level action sequences that you would want to see happen, but that's why you would eventually give him the armor back so that when he wears it and then goes off the chain, you could put a stunt person, anybody you want, in the costume underneath the helmet and just have him do the voiceover parts. So you get your epic Boba Fett fight scenes with the Mandalorian. I feel like all the Cobb Vanth Mando team-up scenes during Episode 1 are a good teaser for what that might be like. So if Cobb Vanth has only had the armor for a couple years and he's already this good with it, think about how Boba Fett is going to be when he gets his armor back. I also want to see Temuera Morrison put that helmet on for the first time, just to see the look on his face when he gets his armor back. The number 1, what about Ahsoka? Where is Ahsoka Tano? If all the major news sites were reporting Rosario Dawson had been cast to play her in the last year, well, a lot of you may have noticed that Dave Filoni wrote and directed Season 2, Episode 5. He's the person that created the Ahsoka character during the Clone Wars series with George Lucas. One of the rumored temporary working titles for an episode in Season 2 was, quote-unquote, The Sorcerer, which is a reference to the Jedi that the armor and the Mandalorian make. They were really big about including a lot of that dialogue in the Season 2 trailer, just letting you know we will eventually see some Jedi this season, or people who used to be Jedi, because technically Ahsoka isn't a Jedi. But I'll be doing more Mandalorian Season 2 and Star Wars bonus videos next week. Leave all your requests and big questions in the comments below. Congratulations, Jay Knight, you're the giveaway winner for my last big Star Wars video. Everyone click here for my full Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1 video. And everyone click here for my new Thor 4 Marvel Avengers video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. This is The Way.